Oh, thanks to David and Jerry supporting me, and that's how, in fact, he is supporting all of us. You guys also.
Thank you, David.
That is very important.
It's our pleasure.
So, so we have been continuing this journey. So because then I can keep my expectations killed. So that is the way. That is the real essence of being a monk. So monk is totally focused on the journey to pass on the knowledge. So from there, the concept of charity has come. Lot of things. Leave that aside. So what we were doing, we started with uh, Om meditation. So Om is the designator of real self, and the real self is self-existent, self-evident reality. Self-existent and self-evident reality means it is independent of anything and everything in the world. You see that the moment the real self depends on anything, it becomes a relative reality. So what we are looking in meditation, the absolute reality. And what is that absolute reality? It is permanent peace. It is happiness. It is love. It is wisdom. It cannot be taken away. It is my nature. It is our nature. So that is the goal of all meditation, any meditation practices. So we started, Patanjali says, you see that you have to practice Om meditation with the meaning. This is the meaning that I explained. But what happened? I have lot of past impressions. I have a typical attitude. I have a reacting and blame attitude. So the students blame the teacher, blame the practice. Why? That blame is present inside the head because I have been blaming and complaining and reacting to others. So it will applies to the teacher and the practice also, not a big deal. Do you see that? Not a big deal. So Patanjali says that you have to focus on the meaning so that our attitude changes, our mind, the impressions that we have accumulated undergoes a changes. So that Patanjali is explaining by Om meditation, you can remove all the obstacles on the path, all the barriers on the path. Huh? Why should I be responsible for anything that you do and you experience? You are responsible. You are responsible. But our mind continues. That is the way we live in the world. Something, little thing happened, get lost. Come on, tell your mind you get lost. We have to change our mind. That is the journey of yoga. But we forget it. Why we forget? Because of lot of impressions. First thing, because they pose an obstacle. I have already detailed those obstacles. Then master says, okay, I have been saying you, Patanjali, our masters have been so kind. Then they focus because your impressions, means accumulated impressions, my reactive, blame, complaint, attitude, constantly manifest in my personal, professional, social life. So the Patanjali, look at the Patanjali, the way he explains. He says, okay, why don't you change your attitude? Remain cheerful with 4 attitude of friendliness, compassion, joy, and equanimity in the mind. Because I accumulate impression when I meet people, because then my self-interest, when my duality and a conflict enters into the mind. So Maitri, Karuna, Mudita, Upekshanam means I have to cultivate an attitude of friendliness to those people who meet me with the happiness, compassion with those people who are suffering, and joy with those people who are, you can say, who are virtuous, or who are kind, who are noble, uh, like you guys. So, and the fourth one, equanimity, the attitude of equanimity with those people who are punya apunya. Whom we say, oh, this guy, this politician is bad. No, hold on. This is none of my business. None of my business. Tell your mind, this is none of my business. You vote anyone, but that is none of my business. Why? To keep my mind clean, to live into the state of cheerfulness. Now, see, it is a mental phenomena, but not many people succeed in this journey because they have a very deep impression in the mind. Say, you have cultivated an attitude of hatred against a person, and that impression continues to trigger. So it demands a lot of awareness and attention during the day, meeting with the people, building the relationship. So Patanjali says, okay, you cannot do it. So Patanjali has come to the practice of so-called pranayama. It is not, you may say it is pranayama. I will deal next week in 2 sessions what Patanjali is saying. In these sessions, I'm preparing you to understand what Patanjali has been saying. So he says, Prachadharana Vidharana Bhyam. He uses only 2 words. So what he is saying, that by these so-called breathing practices, we I use the word, we can keep in abeyance all the past impressions for a temporary period. Now the mind is ready to go within. So one, it has already gone within. You bypass all the past previous impressions. You enter into a higher state of meditation. If you say meditation is a state of being, meditation succeeds when you live, think, and speak 24 by 7 in meditative state. Now compare this step. Will you be doing breathing practices 24 by 7? Not possible. So, this is a tool, this is a device by which we remove the past impressions, accumulated impressions. It helps us to raise awareness, it helps us to focus the mind, it helps us to purify our mind. That is the objective. But next week you'll be surprised. I talked about hopping and other aspects, so we will go a little deeper into that. So we already understood that this prana, don't think that I am breathing, so I have a prana. So that prana is present where there is a change, where there is a movement. You see, fingers are moving, lips are moving, thinking. So that prana goes into the mind, becomes a mental energy, and because of the mental energy, I'm able to speak to you. And it is same, because of the mental energy, you are able to hear me. Prano virat prano destri pranam sarvivasati. Prano surya chandrama pranama. Prana. That prana is the protector. That prana is the nourishment. That prana is the life force. That is how this prana is praised by our masters to make us understand that don't think that prana is only present in the living being. Where there is a change, there is prana. Body changes in every cell of the body, prana is there. In the mind, prana is there. In the emotion, prana is there. Huh? In reaction, prana is there. In anger, prana is there. In love, prana is there. In hate, prana is there. So, pay attention. So, what is that? That is by which the living force is alive is known as prana, the first unit of energy. Now go little deeper with the reference of the prana. There is a real self. For the sake of understanding, the prana is born of the real self. As shadow in the man, so is this in the real self. The prana is like a shadow of the real self. Because of the action of the mind, this prana enters into the body. We are going to a deeper understanding. By the action of the steering, or by the action of the driver, that fuel is burnt to be used for a movement of a car. Did you get it? So, by the action of the mind, this prana enters into every cell of the body. Now, one another understanding this energy, it is energy. Energy is all pervading. Energy is neither created nor destroyed. We already know from physics. The same thing with the prana. So, when I die, the prana does not die. That needs also to be understood. Prana remains equal, universal. Now, go a little further. What it has to do with the mind? I am reacting. I have a hatred. I am in anxiety. What it has to do with the prana? Because it lives in the these anxiety, hatred, and these attitude lives in the mind. So let us go for another understanding. Take this spine from the crown of the head to the tailbone. Prana flows continuously, and that flow of the energy then distributed to every cell of the body. Just and for the sake of understanding, it is now if the prana is pointing downward, moving downward, then what happens? You have distraction, you have anxiety, you have duality, you have conflict, you have problems. You say, I'm done with, I'm frustrated. And if the prana is moving upward, then it continues to help you raise your consciousness. You start moving into the higher and higher consciousness. Higher consciousness means peace and happiness, love and wisdom. Car cannot move by itself, so the prana cannot move by itself. So it means what? Mind. Mind. Mind has to move the prana. This teacher is crazy. You are listening to the teacher, and the mind is saying, this teacher is crazy. Your prana is moving down. You are harming yourself. It has nothing to do with me. So, 100 would be 100%. I am 100% clear about it. Do you see that? So it means the mind moves the prana, changes the direction, and the mind moves the prana either downward or upward. So I should have a right knowledge. Oh, teach me whatever you want to teach me. I'm fed up with you. So your prana is already moving down. You are responsible for your success and failure. Understand this. Understand. Now what happens? Oh, honey, okay, let me sit and talk to you. You are already moving your prana downward. How there can be a peace and happiness? Do understand how you relate these to day-to-day living. Are you getting it? So refrain from any thought that pulls the prana downward. For what sake? For your own sake. Not for the sake of others. The entire journey is to discover the real self. So now today's main thing comes. What is that main thing? Understand that clearly and think it over again and again. The moment you have anxiety, duality, conflict, reaction, blame, lack of awareness, it is the impurity of prana in the mind. Did you understand? If you have a impure, contaminated fuel in the car, you cannot drive properly. Yeah, you cannot drive. Engine may get a failure. Lot of problems comes. So now what our great master who lived until 1950, Sri Aurobindo, he uses a beautiful phrase. Now understand, desire is the impurity of prana in the mind. Desire is the impurity of prana in the mind. That is why pranayama, to purify the mind. So by the breathing practices, we not only purify the mind, but we also focus the mind. Got it? Clear? Understood? So refrain from getting upset. The moment you are upset, prana, I want to lift you up. Let me think good for everyone. Let me think good for everyone. Not that I want to be monk, but for my own sake. Are you getting it? So that, such a deeper understanding. Now see that before Patanjali in the previous sutra says friendliness. No, I don't want to think a lot about this. He is definitely a crazy guy, so I don't want to talk to him because I cannot become aware. I do not want to understand. So when I do not have an understanding, Patanjali says, come on, Use the breathing. Use the breathing. But use the breathing for a temporary period. You cannot do the breathing 24 by 7 uh, until we live. So I'm repeating it again. Desire is the impurity of prana in the mind. So when I change the rate and the rhythm of the breath, it triggers the mind. Now, I'm not going into, John will explain you physiological. I will also explain about that later. Our focus is to remove the distraction, remain cheerful, so that I can succeed in meditation. Our focus in yoga is not to increase the oxygen concentration. Science talks of relativity because even Jerry knows, even if you increase the oxygen concentration beyond a limit, we will die. Oxygen becomes a poison. So the carbon dioxide. So we are not going there. We are not talking of that. We are understanding that how to achieve success in meditation. So when I say desire is the impurity of prana in the mind, it means what? You have 1 million desire. It is every cell of your body is impure. How do you know? Self-centered, totally self-centered, looking for how to extract everything. The world is a utility for me. And you have seen a lot of people in your life. So desire is the impurity of the prana in the mind. All craving, etc., enters into it. Got it. Another last point is also very important that it demands a tremendous commitment and sincerity to continue the practice. The Hatha Yoga master says you have to practice 1 hour in the morning, only pranayama, 1 hour in the afternoon, 1 hour in the evening, 1 hour in the midnight, continuously for 6 months. So here the Patanjali says understanding 80% and 20% of the practice will do. So what we are going to do, we will combine the last two practices that we have done. We will do the chest breathing, means consciously I have to link my mind with the movement of the rib cage and the and the breath. Second breathing, belly breathing. So I must maintain my awareness and focus inside the belly button. And when I breathe in, the belly expands. When I breathe out, the belly contracts. That simply means think of the belly like a balloon. You inflate it, you deflate it. So means the mind is totally focused in that reason. Third is both together. Long, deep in the hissing breath that we did it. Focus inside the forehead. For the chest, focus inside the heart. For the belly, focus inside the belly button. What did we say? We understand? Where the mind goes, there the prana goes. So my mind is focused on the knowledge part at this, so there the prana gives me a tremendous energy and enthusiasm to express the concept. Just see, it happens every time. Some of you may not be paying attention. Crazy guy, when you're going to start the practice. Enough is enough. So you see that your mind is already distracted. That is why we say be a seeker. So when you are seeker, then it doesn't happen. So that is the first stage. And then we will notice the changes in our sensation and experiences, the three kinds of the breath. In the stage two, we will do the same. We will close the right nostril, we will inhale deep, long, and the fast with my left nostril, then close it. I normally use my only right hand. I place it middle two fingers on the left nostril and thumb. So I gently press the thumb and I release the two. So I'm breathing through the left nostril. Then gently uh, close the left and start breathing through the right. And then fit both the nostrils. So that is what we have done in two practices. And after that, we will check the flow of the nostrils is equal in both the nostrils. That is an indication that now the mind is flowing into the spine or the prana or in the middle channel, or it is balanced. There are a lot of expressions. In kundalini we have another expression, in raja yoga we have another expression, but it is the same thing. So once you notice that flow of the nostril is equal, then what we will do, then Om Shanti. We already know Om is the real self, Shanti is the expression. First, we will do it with the deep breathing, and after that, we will do it with a normal breathing. So let us start our journey.